Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar presented to you by the SAP Customer Experience Group. This is the 8th webinar in the current series about upgrading to SAP BusinessObjects BI Platform 4.1. My name is Adrian Paul from the SAP Customer Experience Group, and today's webinar is about the Desktop to Web conversion and the Desktop Compatibility Pack. This webinar will be presented to you by my SAP colleague Caroline Eckel. The list of all the webinars in this series has been published in SCN, and you may have seen this SCN page already, which contains the full webinar calendar. Now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce to you Caroline Eckel, who will begin the main webinar presentation.
Thank you, Adrian, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone joining this webinar today. So today's webinar will be about the conversion of desktop intelligence reports into Web Intelligence as well as the DCP. And where will we start with is basically with the desktop intelligence conversion into Web Intelligence, where we start looking into why, what are the reasons to convert, how to plan this report conversion, how to leverage the report conversion tool, and we will finalize up with some best practices and tips how you could streamline your desktop to Web Intelligence conversion to the best shape possible. Once we have been talking about the desktop to Web conversion, we'll take a peek into the Desktop Intelligence Compatibility Pack. Why we have it, what it is, how you can use it, and what are the limitations available. And then depending on the time available in the whole story and the time that we have in this hour for the webinar, we can take a look into some sample desktop conversions that I've been building up a while ago, to how to troubleshoot those desktop reports that have potential issues in it, and what are the best steps and how can you approach it. So let's start with the desktop to Web Intelligence conversions, and why should you convert your reports? Well, there are various reasons at the end to convert into Web Intelligence, and the only reason for desktop to conversion to Web as the product is being end of life is of course a very valid reason, but there are additional reasons on top of that one, which are the facilities that Web Intelligence provides you are much more powerful compared to desktop. So you can enable a reduction of your cost of ownership. You can consolidate your licenses. You don't have to have dedicated desktop licenses and dedicated Web licenses, especially for those users that already are using both tools. You can definitely reduce your maintenance costs, as Web Intelligence is a fully web-enabled client tool that doesn't require any local installations, and by that you don't need to package potentially solutions and so on. That at the end also reduces, of course, your deployment time, because you can easily shift and update your systems, because you just have to update the server-side components, and your Web Intelligence stack will be benefiting from all new latest innovations that we have today in Web Intelligence and are planning for the near future in the Web Intelligence engines. So the first one of the main reasons, of course, why you need to convert is that desktop intelligence at the end is end of life. And we made a wrong one here. It's like, well, it's not a wrong one. So SAP BI 4.x will not include desktop intelligence. So there is no desktop intelligence client at all available in the BI 4.x stack. So if there is a desktop intelligence still in place, the end of support, the mainstream support, will end by 2015. So December 2015 to be exact. And depending on your priority one contracts, you may have an extended support for 2 years additional on top of that one. However, bug fixing will be a challenge anyhow. So we strongly recommend to upgrade your desktop or convert your desktop intelligence into Web Intelligence. And of course, we recommend to leverage Web Intelligence BI 4.1 for this one. And we go through the slides a bit later on, further detailing out why you should convert with Web Intelligence BI 4.1. and preferably not with the XI 3.1 stack. So if you want a reminder on the desktop end of life, the link is enclosed where you can find the official explanation of the desktop intelligence end of life announcement. But before we start actually doing any conversion, we strongly recommend you to start the planning process. Often what you see is that once you start converting, suddenly there's a lot more work to be done. You take an estimate, okay, we have 100 reports, and at the end of the week, I finally figure out, it's like, oh, there's a lot more than 100 reports. So if you didn't plan it properly, you're probably going to run over budget, over time, and so on. At the end, you only have unsatisfied end users because, hey, but you're going to fix this within a month. So the first step in your planning process, and this is a high-level planning process, of course, is get the list of the documents from all the various departments as well as their priorities. Based on that, you could also start in understanding what reports are actually being used. So to understand that as well, you need to have an insight of what is actually being used out of those documents. The step 2, out of having the insight of the list, the number of documents and their priority, is to understand what is the source. Where are they coming from? And how can we upgrade it into the latest version? Once you have your content, your full client documents being upgraded into BI 4.1, you can start running the conversion tool. And we recommend to run the conversion tool from the BI 4.1 side. But before you actually start doing any kind of conversion, it is strongly recommended to run this conversion tool purely for understanding the requirements, especially on the rework that may be potentially required. And the reason why, again, will be later on explained. So once you have the conversion results being shown and recollected during your planning phase, you can start building up an estimate for the level of rework that is required for documents. So you have potential categories like there's no rework to be required. There may be some reworks like just changing the layout slightly. There may be a lot of rework, or you may even decide based on the results like this is recreating this document is probably going to be a lot faster and a lot better. And so you can replace them completely. So you have a tag as well like to be recreated from scratch. So the next step then would be to handle the rework. And then you also have a source, an in progress and a completed version, and you can check the content and test refreshing and so on. Once you have that completed, you have to involve the business owners at the end. They are the ones that have the content, they know the documents, and they should finalize whether a converted document is actually okay and can execute the accepted testing. At the end, you finish up your document list for each department and deliver them as a package to the conversion or migration team to move over and being processed as for the go-live enablement. So that's in a high-step way the planning of the conversion. But how does it go? So let's start with the migration path and the migration workflows, because actually we have 2 workflows in this place. You have your existing XI3.1 platform, and you can, by that, use, for instance, already the report conversion tool from your existing XI3.1 deployment and convert your reports on top of XI3.1 into Web Intelligence. As a second step, you can use then the upgrade management tool and promote it to BI 4.x. The reason for that process is, especially if you're currently today on the 4.0 platform, there is no functionality for desktop intelligence at all in the BI 4.0 stack. If you are on BI 4.1, you could also say, I use the upgrade management tool first, promote all the desktop intelligence documents into BI 4.1, run the report conversion tool on top of it from the 4.1 engine. So the conversion tool enables you to connect either to the XI3 platform or to the BI 4.1 platform or 4.x platform. If you have 4.1, it could also mean that the documents actually resist in the BI 4.1 system. So once you run the conversion tool, the report conversion tool basically have 3 potential results. The first result would be, and that's the one that we would love to see the most, is the fully converted one. So all you have to do then is compare, have some additional checks, have an assessment by the business user, the business owner, acceptance test, and sign them off. The second level that we have is partly converted, and partly converted typically means there is some rework to be done. There are some functionalities available in the Desktop Intelligence report that just cannot be converted straightforward into Web Intelligence. And the third set that we have are documents that are not converted. And not converted means there are issues with the document, or it has some functionality that just doesn't exist at all in Web Intelligence. For instance, data situation, if you have a freehand SQL document in Desktop Intelligence, that will result in a not converted document for the Web Intelligence engine BI 4.1. At least not as long as you haven't ticked on to create a universe for the freehand statement. For both partial converted and the not converted ones, you have to start enabling the audit trace. And the audit trace is one of the steps within the conversion tool. The audit trace enables you to understand, before even actually converting or even actually executing a conversion, to understand what are the components that are breaking down. Why is it partially converted and why is it not converted? And you can start aggregating this list into, okay, what are the most common problems that we experience, what is the rework, how can we resolve it, where can we resolve, so you can plan. Now we go back to the planning phase. You can plan your whole conversion process a lot better by leveraging this audit phase. That's why we also had in the previous discussion in the planning phase, run this conversion tool for your planning phase already. Because then you can get insight on the level of detail that may be required to rework or not. So how do we use the Desktop Intelligence plugin for the upgrade management tool? So the upgrade management tool is a tool to upgrade content from Excel 3.1 into BI 4.1 or BI 4.0. So in the 4.0 case, it is only used to define the dependencies. So which universes are there, which connections are connected to the universes. So the UMT will promote all the required content into the 4.0 stack. So it's only calculating the dependencies, but will not be upgrading your Desktop Intelligence documents. If you are on a BI 4.1 platform, your upgrade management tool is also capable of upgrading your Desktop Intelligence documents into the BI 4.1 environment. From there, you can continue working with the report conversion tool to have documents being converted. How to leverage the DSC content will be later addressed during the DCP topic. So what is the process? And the first process, as we walk through the step plan as well, it's like you have to upgrade your content. So you start Upgrade Manager, the upgrade management tool. You select the content and you have an X number of objects. And depending on your version, you may have a warning. So we have a screenshot for 4.0, so you're not completely being surprised if you see this warning. Sorry. Is that if you have a 4.0 system, it will indicate you that DSC is not supported and none of the Desktop Intelligence documents will be committed to the platform. This message has been taken out with 4.1, as 4.1 can upgrade your content. However, it cannot leverage the content. So what is the technical information to enable everything around it? The report conversion tool, the audit, how to leverage the auditing report, and how to leverage, for instance, the comparison and delta viewer for DSC to Web Intelligence report conversion. Let's start with the audit trail. This is one of the most important steps in the report conversion tool. So if you leverage and go through the process flow, the second step, so after selecting your reports, it's going to run a local test of the report. So all the reports are being extracted into your local system and the conversion takes place in your local system. Once that has been completed, everything is stored in temporary folders. The report conversion tool enables you to save the audit settings. So it saves an audit trail of what you have been doing. For this you can leverage the auditing connection, so the auditing connector from the BI platform where you store your auditing data. By default, this tick box is not enabled, so you have to select Save Conversion Results in the audit database on the lower part of the screen. And you can select out of the list of available connections that the report conversion tool will query from your CMS, which one is being used for the auditing connection. And there are two settings available, which is delete all rows of the audit table or keep previous results in the audit table. With the first option, it basically drops the schema, the table, and recreates the table. So every historical data is being removed from this particular table. If you use the key previous rows in the older table, it will add additional rows and add and add and add. If you use the key previous row, it's strongly recommended that you also include a comment. So that's the lowest part of the screen where you have a text field that you can fill in, where you can provide a logical naming or a logical comment that is inserted in the older table as well. So it's easier to find back for each batch that you run which documents have been included into that batch. So it provides the overview, fully converted, partially converted, and RTC allows you to save the conversion results into the older database. If you have fully converted documents, there's another tick box available before you continue to the next screen, whether you want to compare fully converted documents. If you select that one, the report conversion tool will run a comparison between the Desktop Intelligence document and the Web Intelligence document and provide a delta viewer. But let's focus first on the auditing reporting. So once you have been collecting the auditing information, you can basically run a Web Intelligence or Desktop Intelligence document on top of that one. And it tells you, for instance, if we go to a particular situation, we have a complex report and the status is partially converted. The information being provided by the report conversion tool, and this is a detailed document that is provided by the report conversion tool, gives you, hey, what are the types of issues. So in this case, it's a break and a chart. And then there will be a detailed log by document. So by document means per each individual tab as well. So if we have multiple reports, we will have multiple blocks available for each report telling you exactly where the problem is. So let's take a look into that table, for instance. So we have report complex rep dot document being converted, and I have a type in breaks, and a subtype is break on multiple dimensions. And the area where it is in the report tab called all, in the table 1.3, and then specifically in the service line object. It gives you an error text, and it gives you a reason why the conversion could not be successful. And it does the same for the charting in this case. So you need to review all of these audit report information and understand, okay, what is the rework to be done on this particular document to make it 100% proper convertible into Web Intelligence, or what are the reworks to be done in Web Intelligence to recreate the same scenario. So some feature of the reporting engine in Web Intelligence. So Web Intelligence in BI for is completely rewritten. There's an improved user experience, especially compared to the X3 or even the earlier versions beyond that one. It's a 64-bit server, so it handles documents of large sizes. There is no limit of the memory anymore of 2 GB that we previously had in the X3 or previous versions. We have added functionality, and by that closing the gap of the features missing in Web Intelligence. And today, with BI 4.1 SP4, we have a 99% parity of desktop intelligence functionality in Web Intelligence. There are just a few steps that are still missing, and unfortunately for some of them they are often used. But we have good news for some of those as well. So fold unfold, input controls is a functionality that's even enabling you a lot of functionalities. Fit to page is a catch-up from Desky that wasn't available in XI 3.1 but is available in BI 4.1. And some of those features apologies, are being added. One of those often requested features in Web Intelligence is not available today is freehand SQL. And freehand SQL, we have some good news for you. As freehand SQL is planned for BI 4.1 SP5. So if we look into versions of Web Intelligence and functionalities on the left side, we have pure typical desktop intelligence functionalities that were available and often used. And if we look into XI 3.1 or even SP2 of XI 3.1 and then BI 4.1, the list of functions that is available in desktop intelligence is getting closer and closer and closer. And as I said before, 99% parity today. And for a full list that is available in desktop intelligence, what is available in BI 4.1, tips and tricks and workarounds for those features that are not available or how you can overcome issues can be found on the link as provided in this slide. So what happens if you have VBA code in your desktop intelligence documents? There is no VBA in Web Intelligence. It's not a C++ code tool, just like Desky. It is a Java engine. So if you have a lot of VBA macros in place, it is required to understand what is the use case of those macros. For the majority of the macros that we came in with our customer base, a lot of those macros have been built, for instance, to enable a kind of publishing mechanism to do some particular work. If one report is being refreshed, it might start picking up a second one. The advantage of a lot of these functionalities today is that they have been embedded by default in the BI platform. So one of the first questions you should ask with your VBA code is, are these requirements that we solve with VBA actually not being resolved by default functionality? And if you have real challenges with some functionalities, there is an SDK available for Web Intelligence as well. So we enabled the extension point, which is the SDK for Web Intelligence, and you can see some additional advantages in that one. And with every service pack, we further enhance the extension points to enable you to build functionalities on top of Web Intelligence. One of the biggest challenges in that one is there is no .NET SDK available. There is only a Java SDK. So there is a lot of stuff being changed, especially if you start using SDK in Web Intelligence compared to even XI 3.1. So we are evolving into the RESTful web services, which is going to be the new functionality of how you can extend Web Intelligence. And not to spend too much time on that topic, there's a link available where you can easily share all the information and find all the information about the RESTful web service, which is maintained by each service pack. So if there's new functionality, this link will provide you with all the insights. And as mentioned before, there is one of those main requirements for desktop intelligence functionality, and it's called freehand SQL. And freehand SQL has not been available in Web Intelligence today, but it is planned for BI 4.1 SP5. And for info, SP5 is planned for calendar week 47 from the top of my mind, which is somewhere end of November. Which would enable you to migrate desktop intelligence documents that are using freehand SQL into Web Intelligence. You can refresh documents that have a freehand SQL data provider. You can create or remove a freehand SQL data provider, in this case by an extension point, so an SDK component. It will support the add variables, but in the initial release there will be limited support on changing connection, changing the metadata, or updating SQL statements. So I can add and remove, using an extension point, but I cannot yet update the SQL statement. So if we talk about post SP5, so that could be SP6 or any further package, we plan to build up a full UI integration for creating, removing, updating, changing a connection, changing metadata, and so on. So basically rebuilding the full functionality of freehand SQL in Web Intelligence with an initial start with a limited functionality with BI 4.1 SP5. So an example how it could be, this is one of those examples where you have freehand SQL functionality within the Web Intelligence engine. So now we have been talking about the planning, the things you have to consider, the challenges that may occur. Let's take a look into how would the sample conversion take place. And I'm not going to talk about the results. I'm talking about the steps, how you go from A to B. So the first step would be to promote your XI 3.1 content into BI 4.1 using the Upgrade Manager. So I'm starting Upgrade Management tool, and I'm going to select an incremental upgrade in this case. I enter my credentials and my information of my source system, which is XI 3.1, and I'm going to enter my destination, which will be a 4.1 system. As I have been connecting to both systems, I have a selection of the objects that I want to promote. And under the options, I have also the option not to export object instance if you want to. So I start selecting some of the objects that are available and where I'm familiar of that they have Desktop Intelligence documents in my system. So I've been selecting my folders, and in the summary it will tell me I have 612 Desktop Intelligence objects or full client objects. So Desktop Intelligence reports are selected for the upgrade. Using the upgrade options, which is at the bottom left side of this screen, the previous screen, you can select how to handle name conflict and incremental exports. What happens if an object already exists, how to deal with it. An important setting if you run incremental upgrade, and sometimes unfortunately forgotten, so please use that functionality. Under upgrade management, start converting or upgrading your content into your BI 4.1 system, sandbox system, whatever you want to use. If you have a 4.0 system, you will have the messaging that Desktop Intelligence is no longer supported and they are not being committed to the platform. If you have a BI 4.1 system, you will have the Desktop Intelligence documents also being promoted and committed to the BI 4.1 target system. Once your content is available in BI 4.1, you can start up the BI 4.1 report conversion tool. And I could select my source as being an XI 3.1 system, or I can use my BI 4.1 system as a source. After the upgrade, so my content is available, I can select the objects from my system available using the report conversion tool. And in this case, I'm going to add some of the reports, and I add them as selected documents by hitting the arrows in the middle. And I'm press next. The report conversion tool starts the conversion process on your local machine. So it's not running on the server side, it's not doing anything on the server side, it's all running on the machine that is hosting the report conversion tool. Once it's completed this list of objects, in this case I've been selecting 8 documents, it gives you a report conversion process completed and an overview of what it has been doing. I can quickly already have an insight. There are 3 successful, 2 partial, and there are 3 completely failed. If we continue down to the next step, it will provide you with the conversion results. So, and I can set an audit setting. I store it in my BI auditing database, and I give it as a description an XI 3.1 sample run as an example. Then I can select the next screen, and it starts a comparison process for this because I'm selecting that one. And for all successful documents, or partial successful documents, it will have the functionality to, or the option for each object on its own, whether you want to promote it and save it in your target system, yes or no. And if that is the case, you can still change the target folder. So by default it takes the same folder. If you want it in a different folder, you can change the folder in the target folder setting. Once you select the documents that you want to publish in your target system, report conversion tool will start committing the object to your target system. So only in this step it will start saving content in your BI 4.1 system. And it tells you at the end, this is what I've been doing and this is the overview. You can exit the tool or start again to return to start and then run a second batch and a third and so on. So that is the whole process for conversion. So, and once you have been running this conversion, there is the next challenge. And let's take a look into those. What are the best practices and tips to take the next steps? So the first one is run the report conversion tool and collect conversion results audit already in your planning phase. I already addressed that one when we talked about the planning phase. Very important because that gives you insight on what is the impact on my system and how much time and how much rework may I have in this process. If you don't have this insight during your planning phase, there will be definitely a challenge in your planning. Once you have these results collected, you need to evaluate the results. You need to understand the amount of potential rework. But also you need to understand whether you're really going to convert those reports or decide to rebuild them from scratch. And with the same insight, you can always start planning how and where to solve your issues. In some cases, it may be easier and faster to resolve an issue in the old DSKI document. And in some cases, there may be only an option to fix it into Web Intelligence. For instance, one of those examples, which you can leverage in that one, if I had, and we had it in a screenshot for the auditing results, is a combined break, so a multi-dimensional break setting in a Desktop Intelligence report. That is a functionality that is not available in Web Intelligence. So an easy fix to make this report successful in conversion, at least for that particular functionality, is to either decouple the break and make it multiple breaks itself, or to create a local variable where you build up the whole logic and use the break for that one. So it's just for one object. You probably can do that a lot faster in Desktop Intelligence than to try to fix the report layout later on in Web Intelligence, because it's taking a longer time in Webby to have the same steps applied. Of course, during your planning phase, you have to understand, okay, what is the target version that we're going to use? We can use Web Intelligence Extra 3.1 to convert our documents. Or are we going to use BI 4.1 SB4? With the BI 4.1 SB4 function, you have to get the highest parity in feature functionality from DSKI. Or are we going to wait for SB5 where we have freehand SQL potentially? Once you have your whole planning step done, the next recommendation, the best practice, is to convert in batches and record a logical description in the comment field of the report conversion tool. And then resolve issues by report tab, based on the audit information that you've been collecting. If you start running wild based on a particular issue, you will lose your oversight of your project. You should solve the issues document by document, report by report. And once you have been converting your Desktop Intelligence documents into Web Intelligence, your Web Intelligence documents have been gone live, strongly recommend to archive your converted Desktop documents. So you can keep your CMS clean, take them out using an LCMB file, for instance, or store them all with a save as on a logical disk, so you can, if needed, revert or pick back your Desktop documents and check some other settings. So there was some sample conversion that I've been going through, but I'm not going to stick too much time to this conversion samples at this point of time, because we still have another topic to address that is pretty important. And that is the Desktop Intelligence Compatibility Pack. So what is the Desktop Intelligence Compatibility Pack? And once more, the end-of-life announcement for DSKI, because sometimes it's still not well received that DSKI will not be there anymore. And Desktop Intelligence Compatibility Pack is not changing this fact. So the most important message is DESKI is not back. There is no DESKI in BI 4.1. There is no DESKI in BI 4.0. There will be no DESKI in BI 4.2, 3, whatsoever version. There will be no DESKI. Serious. So what did we do? We created a solution that is called the Desktop Intelligence Compatibility Pack, which enables you, if you have a Desktop Intelligence client, XI 3.1, SB6, FHSQL 1 or higher, you are able to use the Desktop Intelligence Compatibility Pack. The DCP enables you to connect your Desktop Intelligence client from XI 3.1 to a BI 4.1 CMS. So after you've been upgrading your BI 4.1 environment and you upgraded all your Desktop Intelligence documents into BI 4.1, you will be able to connect your DESKI client and extract the documents from the BI 4.1 system. The documents that are stored in BI 4.1 from Desktop Intelligence can only be seen via the central management console or through a DCP-enabled DESKI client. And the only reason why we have them in the CMC is for administrative purposes. There is no way you can view a Desktop Intelligence document within BI Launchpad. There's no option to run a Desktop Intelligence report within the BI 4.1 stack. You can only administer them. So you don't have any functionality depreciation on the DCP except of some functionality in scheduling. So how does that work in an upgrade process into BI 4.1? So nothing changed compared to the previous model, and that we've been discussing before. You have Upgrade Manager 4.1, apologies, where you can upgrade your content from XI 3.1 to a BI 4.1 CMS, or from XI 2 system into a BI 4.1 CMS, including your Desktop Intelligence documents. So the UMT will upgrade the content and store it in the BI 4.1 repository, including security and everything around it. Then using report conversion tool, you can tap into the BI 4.1 system, the XI 3.1 or the XI 2 system, just like taught before. But the only change in 4.1 is that you can also connect your RCT to 4.1 as a source. And once more, DESKI documents are only in the CMC and only for purposes of administration. So how can I use DCP? Because out of the box, if you have XI 3.1, SB6, FHSQL 6.1 or higher, it's not just that just like, okay, I do a start logon and I type in my BI 4.1 system and it works. There is a small step you have to execute in advance. And to enable that one, you need to copy the server name.extranet file, which is normally located in the user profile local data storage for 4.1. And you have to copy it to the log data folder for XI 3.1 or XI 2, depending which version you use. In this case, it would be only XI 3.1 actually. If you don't have this server name.extranet file, you can create it by once having a 3T logon into Webintelligence. That will create the server name.extranet file. And if you don't have the insights exactly how to pull this off, there's a DCP frequently asked questions which clearly states all the steps that are required to enable this. And they can be found by the link provided. So is there any change in functionality when I use the DCP? Basically the answer is no, except for scheduling. all DCP reports that are pulled into DESTI using DCP have the full functionality of Desktop Intelligence. If you run macros with Exo 3.1 in the CMS, you will not be able to run them on the server side anymore, but you have to run them on the client side. And for that we have an SAP node 1896616 telling you how you can use the DESKI SDK further on. So what are the limitations in this story? Basically there are no limitations except of scheduling. The biggest limitation, there are no Desktop Intelligence documents in BI 4.1 that can be shown, refreshed, scheduled, whatsoever. So schedule is a process that's going to happen. Oops, that didn't go wrong. So scheduling is the main functionality that is not available. And it will use Windows Scheduler. And now Windows Scheduler version 2.0, and that is only available with Windows 7, Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. If you connect with a DCP connection into 4.1, you need to log off before you want to connect back into an Exo 3.1 system. You cannot say switch user or something like that. You really have to close DESKI and start it up again.
Merline, sorry, this is Adrian. You're not sharing your screen at the moment.
Am I not sharing my screen? That's funny.
Just went off. If you just reshare, please.
Sure. Share my screen again.
It's trying to load again, so.
Can you see my screen again?
We're seeing just a blank. Now we're back, I think. Yeah, you have to
Okay,
switch to.
excellent.
Share mode.
So apologies for that technical glitch. So there is no option to have Desktop Intelligence in a 3T mode from BI Launchpad in BI.1. Again, BI Desktop Intelligence documents are not shown in BI Launchpad, only in CMC. And if you have clients side by side installed, opening Desktop Intelligence documents in Exo 3.1 info view will not work as well that way anymore. So side-by-side install can be tricky in that part. So how does scheduling work out for DCP? So scheduling is executed by Windows Scheduler, and then the Windows Scheduler 2.0 supported by Windows 7, Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 on the client side. What's happening? The scheduling engine works with both 2 and 3 modes, which enables you to keep running in classic models. The connection can still be used, the connection server can still be reached by the Desktop Intelligence client, but there still has to be a client tool running locally to refresh the documents. And a schedule can still be created in the old way once you import or export documents using the Desktop Intelligence client. But managing schedules, it's like removing them or change the setting of the slot, has to be done with the Windows Task Scheduler. So some key links for using DCP. There's an introduction of DCP available on SCN. There is a frequent asked question, and there is a dedicated slide deck on DCP. With about 15 minutes left, I consider that we have some time to go into the samples. So let me take one conversion sample where I've been converting EFASH2.RAP, so a desktop intelligence report, which I have been converting using my previous step. And as we can see from the partial converted result, there is some rework potentially to be done. Luckily, I did collect the auditing trail from the report conversion tool, and by that I've been enabled, I am enabled to look into the potential issues of the conversion. So this gives me a list of all the issues that may occur. And I can start looking into various blocks. So for instance, I have an issue on annual sales revenue chart 1. The role type is chart and they all have some settings available. So let's have a look. So we have the report in Desktop Intelligence. There's a screenshot and it's one of the default documents. And there is a 3D chart available, a bar chart in this case. If I open up the same report after conversion in Web Intelligence, the chart will show, not a chart, it shows a red cross. So the issue is that 3D charts have not been properly converted. So the mapping on the object has been lost during conversion. So an easy step to repair this missing functionality can be done within Web Intelligence after the conversion, which is just open up the properties of the chart, reassign the data to the bar chart, switch on the 3D look, and you're up and running. But there were more issues in this document. So let's take a look into the issue number 2. So there's another chart available. Chart legend position cannot be maintained with Web Intelligence chart. Multiple groups not available. Okay, 2 other challenges with charting engines. So let's have a look into the original Desktop Intelligence chart. So we have a combined bar and line chart, and we have a legend on the right side. After converting, again, I have the red cross. So issues in this case is with the multiple axes that are not properly converted and the mapping by those objects has been lost. So the easy step is to go back into the Web Intelligence document, change the layout of the chart to a bar and line chart, reassign the data points to be used by the chart, potentially the chart regions, and change plot area of a bar chart. And by that you resolve the issue of this particular chart. Unfortunately, we're not yet done with the issues, as there's a third one. In the annual variance report, there's a table with some issues. So let's take a look into that one as well. Again, first the report as it's been created by Desktop Intelligence, where we have a variance comparison apparently between 2000 and 1999 in the report. After the conversion of report, I have an issue that suddenly is just showing 3 columns of data instead of the 5 that I had before. But the variance function that Desktop Intelligence had does not exist in Web Intelligence. So steps to repair this functionality is to create a local variable, rebuild the table, add the new calculations, and you have to be up and running again. So all these 3 examples can be resolved using Web Intelligence. So that is a short, quick example of the Web Intelligence conversion and how you can address the issues. So don't start running through the auditing log. That is the big start and look into, okay, these are all combined into one particular block of the report and resolve them step by step. If you do that and you follow those steps, you will be easily and successfully converting your reports. With about a few minutes to go, let's open up the line for answers and questions. Or questions and answers. Sorry.
Thanks for that, Merlijn. Thanks for the excellent presentation. So I think that there have been a number of questions coming in, and Henry has answered most of them. Thanks, Henry. So this is the opportunity for anyone to submit any questions that they have that are new or perhaps haven't been answered completely before. I think there is one just submitted from James Tuber, which Henry's just answered, about the particular service packs that are needed for the conversion. So if there are any other new questions that people want to ask, please go ahead, and we'll wait for a short while to receive those. So Praveen has asked, does the freehand SQL with procedure calls, will that be converted?
Sorry, the question was? With freehand SQL with?
Procedure calls be converted.
With procedural calls, most probably not with the first release, potentially later on. The procedure calls, probably with Oracle procedures. If the Oracle client at the end can handle them, they will be able to do so. But I have to validate that one with our development teams. So I don't have a straight answer on that one.
Thank you. And he refers to Sybase as the database.
Sybase IQ, ISE. I assume that they will run, but I haven't looked into that part myself so far. So I have to touch base with development, and we can channel that back.
So okay, thank you, Merlijn. There's a question from Jayashri regarding the macros for Webby reports. How can we answer this? What is the SDK? What is the SDK available for use for this?
So the SDK, all documentation about the SDK can be found on help.sap.com. When you navigate to Analytics, BI, you have a dedicated section called Web Intelligence in there. And you will be able to find the SDK documentation for the extension point as well as for the RESTful web service. And as we said also in this slide, there is a dedicated page that goes really into the RESTful web services and tells you all the details how you can customize Web Intelligence using RESTful web service, how you can leverage RESTful web service, but also there's a very extensive set of documentation available about the extension points, how you have to write them. There are even samples available if you go through the zip files that are attached in help.sap.com.
Thank you. And Henry has also added a help link there, so thanks, Henry. Question from Remco: when FHS reports do not convert at all, no UNV is generated. What might be the reason for this?
It could be that the connection cannot be created. If the connection is not there, it will fail. If the server cannot, or your client cannot connect to the source that is used by freehand SQL, we cannot generate the universe. So that could be a potential reason why it is failing. Otherwise, the only recommendation is like provide the log file, open up a support message, get the trace files attached into it, so we can take a look into it.
Okay, question from Norm. So the main reason for bringing DESKI reports into 4.1 is just to use the 4.1 report conversion tool? Question mark.
And no, the main advantage in having them in 4.1 is that you can start shutting down your XI 3.1 system. So you can upgrade all the materials from XI into the BI 4.1 stack and start phasing out your XI 3.1. So you don't have an upgrade process that's going to take ages, because you also have to deal with your desktop intelligence documents. Now you can upgrade all your content straight into 4.1, and after you have upgraded and start adopting 4.1 within the organization, slowly but surely and gently start converting your DESKI into Web Intelligence. So to reduce your total cost of ownership of your upgrade process and maintaining duplicate systems.
Thank you. Norm is actually typing another question, and while that's happening, just wanted to reiterate the page that's currently being displayed is the SCN page, which does contain all of the existing calendar schedule for the webinar series and also previous webinar recordings. The URL is given on the display as well. And so Norm has actually submitted another question, but the users can't run the DeskKey reports in 4.1.
They can run them from 4.1 using the DCP, but that means they have the local client requirements, but not through a web interface.
And Henry has responded, correct, DeskKey stays DeskKey, no BI 4.1 server-side processing on the platform. So once again, thanks for your presentation, Marilyn, and for the quick response to questions, Henry. So this concludes this current webinar, and everyone, thank you for your attendance. And this webinar recording will be available in a few days' time from the SCN calendar page, which is just displayed.